Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate, and I'm thrilled to share this episode with you. This is a conversation that I haven't stopped thinking about since it happened, and I know that you're going to gain so much from it and that you're going to love these two ladies. But before we get into it, please make sure that you subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and please share it with everyone you know. Make sure that you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and YouTube, and TikTok. There are so many great things happening here, and we have so many exciting things coming up. You can find all of our podcast episodes, our documentaries, and so much more on our website at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com. We are so grateful for all that you do to support this revolution. On this week's episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast, I welcome Leeann Moore and Sherry Gibbons, co-founders of Sister Corps. Sister Corps is a community relief nonprofit organization that is made up of mainly retired women who jump in to help those experiencing natural disasters in our world. But they also welcome all people of all ages, anyone who wants to help. So anyone who is listening, you can get involved in Sister Corps no matter where you live, no matter how old or young you are, you can get involved. If debris needs to be cleared, Sister Corps is there. If you need a deck repaired or new drywall or a room painted, Sister Corps has got you. These women and their sisters across the country will blow your mind, they will inspire you, and they will encourage you to do something. Each and every one of us can make a difference through our lives, and these women are meeting the needs of those who often need our help and support the most. You're going to love these two amazing ladies. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Leeann and Sherry. Sherry and Leeann, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you both on. It's been a while since I've had two people on the podcast. So I'm really excited. I know it's going to be a dynamic, so we're going to have to figure it out as we go. But I really wanted to have both of you on to tell your stories and share about the incredible work that you're doing. But before we get into that, I'd love to just start with your own stories and just a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your life journey. So Leeann, could I start with you?
I grew up with a sense of wanting to help people. So my profession for 42 years was in a helping field. I was a teacher and a professor. And so that's probably been one of my driving forces. And I grew up, as I will probably tell you later in the story, with a strong independent streak of, I can do it. I will do it. And I retired some years ago, and I did not retire to do nothing. In fact, I retired to keep on doing things that were giving to people and doing things that mattered. And took a couple of years to find this particular focus, but that's how I got here. I've lived in the Northwest and Texas and points in between.
Yeah, we have two Texas girls on the podcast today, which is great. Sherry, what about you?
Well, I'm a lifelong traveler. My dad was a pipeline welder, and when I was 6 weeks old, we moved to Mexico, and I've not stopped traveling since then. My husband and I lived in the Middle East when we were young. I've been to every state in the country, either for work or for pleasure, except Alaska. I've been fortunate to meet so many people from so many backgrounds that it's just exciting to me. And when I joined Sisters on the Fly, which is where Sisters Corps shot off from, within a few years, they were growing so fast, they needed wranglers. And being the oldest of 5 kids, I don't know how not to take charge of something, whether it's this or Sisters on the Fly or just when I played sports, I was always a captain. So it's just in my nature to want to lead and make things happen. And then when Sister Corps became about, it was just like a natural fit for me. And I continue to want to reach out to people and show them that there's help out there.
Yeah, well, you're doing it every single day through Sister Corps, and the work that you're doing is so inspiring and amazing. How did you two first meet? How did you get connected? Was it through Sisters on the Fly and then it moved in? You decided to start? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah.
it was.
Yeah, we've probably known each other since maybe, I don't know, 12 years or something like that. Something like that.
Remember, yeah, I was trying to remember where we did first meet.
Yeah. And
I'm sure it was definitely at a sister's event.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we have worked closely together now for over 6 years, but on Sister Course, 6 years. I mean, like we are like
Probably
nearly married at a distance. We're really together.
we're probably pushing 10 years that we've worked together.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and we found out that we work well together. We kind of balance each other. So that's been a great mix to be able to do this together. Because like I said, we're a good balance.
Yeah, it's almost a classic case of having two people with very, very different strengths that make a great pair. And we often have this idea, but and that's interesting. I mean, it's just like things happen because both of us are thinking about it, and then one of us speaks up. It's like, we're in sync. Yeah.
Yeah, we literally often will be thinking of the same idea at the same time, and one of us will pick up the phone and say, "What do you think about this?" And we're like, "Wow, I was just thinking about that."
Yeah. That's so great because we need that so much in our life. We need our sister friends, people that see our vision and will chase our dreams with us and support us and vice versa. And you two have that synergy, that beautiful sisterhood. And now you're empowering so many other people through Sister Core. You talked about Sisters on the Fly. What was that? And what was some of the work that you were doing? And then how did it evolve, if it evolved, or if you separated and then went to start Sister Core? How did Sister Core start?
Well, Sisters on the Fly is a women's adventure group, and I was traveling all the time for work. I just moved back from Milwaukee to Houston and needed something else to do besides just travel and have friends on the road. So Sisters on the Fly had a cowgirl rodeo in Arizona, so I drove out and met Maury, and that's the owner of Sisters on the Fly. And it was just a good fit. I mean, it was adventure. They started having fly fishing trips to Montana, which I wanted to get involved in. When I joined, I'm Sister 121. We're now pushing 22,000. So it was a small group. As it started to grow, they needed people like wranglers, which basically handle admin. They needed at the time a financial coordinator. That's where I came in at that point. And I think that's how Leeann and I ended up hooking up together for work. And then when Harvey hit Texas, I was in Colorado. Like I said, I live in Houston. Maury's daughter, Tara, lives in Montana, and Leeann, of course, in West Texas. So things were happening all at one time. Tara called me and said, Sisters on the Fly wants to help Houston, help with Harvey. Leeann called and said, let's do something. So Leeann was a big factor in getting this whole thing started with the organization part. Like I said, we worked together, but Leeann was a big impetus in getting this all started.
Okay. So Leeann, how, as this was all like unraveling and, as everything was happening with Harvey, was there a moment where you were like, hey, I think we're really on to something. I think we need to not just do this one-time thing, but also just create a nonprofit.
You've got it. We did that orchestrate to go down to Port Aransas, Texas to help after Harvey. I don't know when I've ever felt so compelled to just get in my truck and go do something. And yet we couldn't because lines were down and infrastructure was a mess, and they weren't even letting citizens in but a couple hours a day. But when we did get it all put together, and there were several of us doing it, it was about 8 weeks later, 93 women from 18 states, literally from New Hampshire to Washington and Oregon, went down to the coast of Texas to do this hard work, debris removal, largely. And I know that Sherry and I both left there, along with about 91 other women, having had the most rewarding hard work that we've ever done, and saying, oh, we've got to do this again. We must do this again. And so we formed, the name was already there. We put that together for the project, but we knew leaving there November of 17 that we had something. it was a year, maybe a year and a half later before we made it into a nonprofit, because at first it was just this loosely organized group. But we saw the need to be a nonprofit for donations and for getting help. And so, yeah, there have been several of those times. Kate, there was that time when, oh my gosh, we have something. There was a couple of years ago. I know both of us have just felt like at various times, oh my word. This year we've passed our 5-year marker, and there's this thing that has been created now that is beyond some of us wanting to go do some work. It's a grown group. We have volunteers across the country. And now we see that we have 2 missions. We're doing the mission of helping the people that are in disasters, but we have now opened up a vehicle for other women to do this good work of helping other people.
And we can all do something too. That's what I love so much about the work that you're doing. And you had shared with me, Leeann, that the way that you found out about One Girl Revolution, because the way that I found out about you is you emailed in, which I love getting those emails from people that are like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Thought you might want to know about it. And I read your email and looked up the work that you're doing. And I was like, I need to have these amazing women on the podcast to share their story. But what I love so much about, you found out about the podcast because you were listening to Wendy Steele's episode, who runs Impact 100. And her story is very similar to yours, where it's like, we can all make a difference. We don't have to necessarily found an organization. There's so many groups like yours, and here you're raising up women from all across the country. If something happens, we all want to do something. I think there's like an innate thing within us where we're like, I see a natural disaster and I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And you're providing that vehicle, which is amazing. Okay.
One of the things we've said is we can't, we aren't changing the world, but we're making a difference where we're working with the people we're working with.
Yeah.
You are. And it grows too. Like, that's the thing, is it has this ripple effect, right? People do one thing and then they're like, oh, that felt good. I want to do more. Just like you had shared about your own experience. So for people that are listening, Sherry, could you tell us what Sister Corps is and more about the work that you do?
Sister Corps is obviously a women's volunteer group that does community service. Basically, the big projects are mostly disaster related, but we've done everything from blood drives to cleaning up historic cemeteries. Now we're starting to build the beds for the children. It's every time we do, especially a big project, everyone leaves there going, oh my God, I took more out of this than I put in it.
Oh yeah.
And so to see those differences you make, I think the first time it really hit me that something was going on was our very first project when we were in Port Aransas. And we'd been there a few days and we had signs on our cars. And I remember a woman walking up to my truck crying because we were there to help her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those kind of, and that hasn't stopped. Anytime we're in a disaster project, the stories that we hear are just heartbreaking. One
of the things that Sherry's talking, we make it pretty clear we're not first responders. We're not there. We have some rapid response that we do where we get materials and goods in, but where this is leading it, we typically are there maybe 2 months after the disaster is hit. And it's become our niche because so many times, many groups go in at the front and the media's there and the drama's there and the people are getting help and they're still in shock. And then one by one, people start to leave. And somewhere about 6 weeks, 7 weeks later, most everybody's pulled out. And now they're there with the reality. And it's getting very old. It's terrible to live in an area where you can't drive to the store. If the store's still there, on the way you pass just square miles of disaster that's not getting cleaned up fast at all. And so despair sets in, or it's just very, very, they're very at a low spot oftentimes when we get there. And so we get to be a new ray of hope. and we listen to them, which they haven't been listened to.
Yeah.
Which that's one of our strong things we convey to our volunteers is listen, stop, put the hammer down, and just listen. This woman has lost her two parents, and that's more important right now to listen to that than to be painting her living room.
It's that community element. It's that back to that sisterhood. We all need community. And like you're sharing, as you were sharing, I was thinking about even in instances where there's a death in the family, or on a positive side, like a new baby is born. And we have so many instances where it's a cool flash in the pan to do something nice for somebody in those instances. But then what happens a couple months down the line when somebody is still struggling with grief because of the loss of their loved one, or the mom who's not sleeping because her baby now is 3 months old. And, we need to build community around those people. And even in these natural disasters, like you shared, what we see on the news, we see it for a hot second. And then what happens to these people? Their lives have been uprooted. Their lives have been changed. They've lost loved ones. They've lost their homes, their community. And so we need to build community around those people for years to come.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of Sister Corps is because we are a woman's group. As we know, women tend to listen better. We're moms. We're used to listening to kids and people. So I think that's the empathy part of what Sister Corps brings to the job is very, very important and relevant.
Donate to One Girl Revolution's nonprofit organization to help us continue our work, highlighting inspiring women and girls that are changing the world through their lives, promoting their work and their organizations, and building a powerful and positive force out in the world, dedicated to empowering women, their voices, and their stories. Donate at onegirlrevolution.com/donate. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com/donate.
One of the things that we do at our bigger projects is we have an orientation before we start. And among other things at the orientation, we talk about listen to them and be aware of the backstories. Because by the way, a little demographic about us, which makes sense as I'm telling this story, is our average age is 62 and a half as a women's group. Now that we do have some 40-year-olds that come, but most of them are working. We have I believe 3 women that are 80, 81. And yes, they come and work, and they work hard. One was running a jackhammer about 3 years ago. But as we find something for everybody to do that genuinely contributes. So we are an older group. And in this backstory, what I'm saying is we talk about when you're working on a house and you're doing some hard work, and the woman comes up and she's 40, or the man comes up and he's also young, and you think, well, now, why is it that I'm working? Why aren't they working? The backstory is we don't know. We often don't know. But I guarantee you there is a backstory. Case in point, I told a group this last summer, and sure enough, a woman in her 40s came to her house where we were working, very fit. What we learned about her was she couldn't live in their house anymore. They had to get an apartment. They're still paying mortgage on the house they can't live in, but now they're having to get an apartment, which is significantly more than their mortgage. So now they've gotten 2 extra jobs each, and they have 6 children that they've adopted. So we need to step back and not judge. We're just there to help. That's it. Because there are big burdens that they're carrying, and they may talk about it and they may not.
Yeah, you just never know what people are going through. And I think our responsibility as fellow human beings is to just be present. And like you said, listen in these instances and try to do the best we can. Sometimes people don't have the time to take time off of work, but they might have money or resources that they can share in some way, but we can all do something. And I love that you shared that it's an older demographic, because as the saying goes, you don't have to die to have many lives, and we all can make
an impact. And I think sometimes as we get older, we think like, oh, I can't make a difference anymore. Like I'm retired and just sit at home and twiddle our thumbs. But no, we all can make an impact. And even having the life experience, like you both shared, being mothers, being friends, having all these things that you've experienced, you bring that to the table too, when you're serving and working with these people, which is beautiful.
Yeah, we kind of rock the world when I like to say when we drive up with a pickup, they hear the debris removal team is coming and the pickup arrives and 5 women our age get out with chainsaws, and we kind of shake things up with ageism and sexism and gender stereotypes, because we really get to work. Really
I love it. I love it. And I can't wait to continue to follow everything you're doing. And there's just so much that I want to talk to you both about. But I'm always curious about stories, because this podcast obviously is about your stories, the great work that you're doing. But I know that you've helped so many people and you continue to do so every single day. But is there a story, and I'll give you each time to share, is there a story that really kind of touched your heart and made you think, yeah, I need to keep doing this? Or maybe you were having a rough day and you were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I know that there are instances where, we get tired and we're like, am I doing this? Is anybody even paying attention? But is there a story of somebody, an individual or a family or someone that you've helped through your work that really touched your life in a special way? Leeann, I'll start with you.
Oh, I was hoping you'd start with Sherry on this. There are so many.
Yeah, there are.
Every project, I think every project we come away thinking, oh my gosh, this is the most heartwarming story yet. One of our very first stories is one that stays with us. And we helped a woman that was helping everybody else. And nobody knew that she was living in a tent in very poor conditions, because she was helping run a soup kitchen where the hurricane had hit. And in fact, people across town were flabbergasted till to find out what she'd done. And we walked into the Volunteer Coordinating Center, brand new. I mean, this was like we were green as green. But every time we go to a place, there's a Volunteer Coordinating Center that helps us find the work. We walked in and said, okay, give us our work. And they were lining things out. And one of them said, well, we have this old camper. We thought maybe somebody could look at it and see if you can make it livable. And I kind of stopped. I looked at her and said, well, that's what we do, right? And she said, what do you mean? I said, no, that's what we do. We have campers. We camp. We fix them up. And to shorten the story, that's exactly what we did in 3.5 days. We took a very unlivable camper. And yes, in some ways we put lipstick on a pig with it, but we did make it livable and gave it to the woman in the tent. But my bottom to the story is that was the first of a constant stream of things that happened to us that fall that fall into our laps, that just affirm that we're doing the right thing. That of all the people that had walked through this volunteer center, that they would bring up the camper to us, and that was one of the first most heartwarming things we did. I know, and it's just been that way every disaster, every time. Sherry, what's one that really pulls at you?
Well, and I think back to Kentucky. Kentucky was our project last year, and it was the first time we had done work at where a tornado had hit. And until you actually see tornado damage, it's hard to really just comprehend what happens. I mean, these people, one of the couples we met on the first site they had just built their dream home. The family ended up, I think it was in a hall or something. The house literally dissolved around them. Their son, who lived down the hill, couldn't find them at first and was just in a panic. But the others, then right after that one, we went to a woman's house and we're standing on the team, getting ready to go start doing some work for a mobile home for her. And she said something about guilt. And I went, why guilt? And she said, my parents died here. She had been with her daughter in another location. They tried to get to her mom and dad. The trees were everywhere. They couldn't get in. Her and her daughter walked down around a hill and found her parents both on the ground, dead. And it just wrecked the whole team. But we were able to get her in their home, and get her a place to live.
That's got to be the most difficult thing about the work that you're doing, is seeing the devastation and hearing the stories of people that have lost loved ones. But on the flip side, you're able to really work with them and help them and bring them hope.
And we stay in touch. I mean, we stay in touch with her. There's another lady, Leeann is the other lady that just got her home built. Is that Linda?
Yes, Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tornado, she's right. The tornado, we've seen some incredible devastation in the hurricanes, but oh my, now I'd personally been through a tornado that was very destructive, killed a lot of people very close to where I was living. But it had been several decades, and it really hit home to be there. But that, in a hurricane, we have had structures that are destroyed, but the structure is pretty much still there. When we went to the tornado area, there were just structures that weren't there at all. The thing that what might be on that property are some pieces of the house from 7 miles away. That was a massive tornado system. And of course, we've got one now or two in the south this year that have done similarly destructive work. Those to hear those stories and to know that this dream house, she's talking about the couple that had the dream house, they just said philosophically, well, we were about to retire. Now we're starting over. There's no way we can retire at this point. No way. And you just see how life changes just that fast. Mm-hmm. Or the woman in Washington that had been in a flood, and we went up and did some work there last summer. And she was the only place they found a body. It was in her backyard, and she's still traumatized by it. It's devastating to the lives of people.
How do you how do you decide what projects Sister Corps is going to work on? Of course, we're hearing about natural disasters. There are times throughout the year that they happen more often, especially like tornado season in different areas. How do you decide what projects you get involved in? And then how do you rally the troops? How do you rally the sisters and the resources and whatever else you need?
Well, if we grow enough of us, it'll help, but because there are more disasters than we can do. Sherry, you are welcome to answer this question. I think the first thing we have to do is we have to have someone in the area that can carry some of that logistics for us. We have to find one of our volunteers or through our network, because it's hard to do it in Texas when you're working on a project in Florida. So in the beginning, some of us have to do that, and then we find a project director that we know, because they have to be known to us, and they take the lead then on getting that project put together in terms of work teams. And we have our webpage, which is the place we sign up, as well as anybody listening can go to our webpage, which is www.sister-corps.com. Corps, C-O-R-P-S, like the Peace Corps, or the Marine Corps, as my husband likes to say. And we, as volunteers, sign up there as well, but you can see what we do. Sure, add to that, please, what we do to get a project going.
Well, and one of the first things we look at is to try and find a place that's not getting all the media attention.
Yes.
Because they're often just left behind. So we try to find those areas that are that's how we ended up in Port Aransas. Houston was getting all the attention, and Port Aransas is a place where we have camped a lot. The Sisters on the Fly have camped a lot. So it means a lot to us to begin with, and that's how we picked that. And then it turned out to be such a positive thing to hit to go to an area that's not getting all the, and that's one of the first things we look at. I do know that in Florida, obviously Fort Myers and Pine Island got a lot of attention, but there's still so much work to be done. I was looking at some videos even yesterday of updated work, and it's like, oh my God, it's still like leveled. But yeah, that's one of our biggest considerations, is trying to find the areas that aren't getting all the attention.
And how do you get the resources? Do people, of course, people can donate, or do companies sponsor the work that you're doing?
Yes, both of those. We have a wonderfully generous network of women across the country that donate either through out of their own, through birthday fundraisers on Facebook. A check just arrives in the mail. Some of those are $25, $50 donations, and we love them all. Sometimes we have somebody more generous that has more resources, and we'll get a check out of the blue for $5,000. We've had a country singer, Jamie Johnson, that did a concert and gave us half the proceeds, and another nonprofit got the other half. We've had companies like Hilti Tool that have given us $50,000 more worth of tools to use. We've had Best Supply give us drywall. So your answer to your question is yes, all those means, whatever means we can get. It's very much a grassroots movement, and we haven't gotten into the grant writing a lot. We've gotten a couple of grants, both private foundation grants. We need to be writing grants, and we're too darn busy.
You're too busy doing the work, which is part of the problem.
Right.
Well, that's good to know, because I always ask on this podcast, and you both can feel free to add to this, what people can do to get involved in your work and what they can do to support. So obviously they can go to your website, which I will put your website in our show notes, so they can reach out to you if they want it, wherever they are in the country. Yes. Even just sign up to be a part of Sister Corps, because you never know when something might happen in your own area, and you can step in and get involved. You can also travel if there are things going on, but you'll keep those people involved. So, reach out to you guys and get on your email list, or just be a part of the community. They can donate money. They can run fundraisers, like you said, on your Facebook page or on their Facebook pages. Follow you on social media. I always tell people that that's the free way to get involved in what you're doing, and, share your posts if there are things that you're looking for that other people can help. And companies, if there are businesses or people that have businesses that are listening, if they want to get involved and donate, and it can be on a project to project basis too, just to reach out to you and let you know that they're available.
Yes, we are a 501c3. So, we give acknowledgement letters, and that does help some companies that are looking for that. On our website, there is a place. If you were a woman over 21, and I would just say only in reasonably good health, because we have jobs you can do sitting at home. We need somebody right now to do our social media work. We're looking almost always for a strong CPA. We have computer work that can be done. We have things like that can be done in your own home, at your own place, or in your area. So, and different things that appeal to you. There's a place on our website that says volunteer here, volunteer now. And they can click that button and go create an account and start getting involved with us as a volunteer. And we've been focusing on disasters, but to appeal to some people, we do environmental work. We have had some really interesting projects. One in Sequoia National Park, where a small group worked with the rangers, did fire mitigation, did some, trail building. I know we did trail building in Colorado in a state park. Sherry was went into that. And so there are things that may appeal to you that the disaster doesn't. That's on our webpage. And that would be the best way to volunteer. You can always also write either at sister-corps.com or president at sister-corps.com, and just reach out to us that way.
A lot of what we do at this point is still reaching out on our personal Facebook pages to friends. Having derived from Sisters on the Fly, we still reach out to that group, although we're expanding past that. I think this year we're in a big growth spurt because we've opened our volunteers to not just Sisters on the Fly, but to women in general. So I think we'll see a big change in that. So it's still kind of word of mouth, written word on social media, but we're changing that. We're expanding.
So I know that you have grown and evolved so much over the past couple of years in your short existence, but where do you both hope that you go from here? I know, like, of course, growing in membership, growing in the amount of people that are involved, because you'll be able to accomplish more. But to each of you, what do you, in your dream of dream worlds, where do you hope that Sister Core goes from here? And Leeann, I'll start with you.
Well, because we didn't start this to be this, we just found ourselves in this place one day. And I heard that on several of your podcasts with different nonprofit people. And I thought, oh, good. I maybe thought we were supposed to have known we were going to become a nonprofit. I say that what I want more than anything is that this continues on past my active life or my life, because it's doing so much good for so many people from different angles. We set some long-range goals at our annual board meeting. And one of those is to get to the point where we can financially afford a part-time executive director. We have no paid staff, none. We are a working board. We work all ankles of it. Only pay a CPA to review our books. That's it. So I guess that would be the goal, not that that's important in itself, but that allows us to do more and be more and become solid. I mean, that's the arranging for the last 2 or 3 years is that what we want in a budget is to become solid, to have stability and not be at the whim of, did we get enough donations right now?
When there's a community service need in any state, that maybe one of the first people or first groups that people think of as Sister Core.
Yeah.
That's my ultimate goal, I believe.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And it's so simple. I just want to encourage people again to reach out to you on your website. I will put your website in the show notes so people can easily get in touch with you. And, even if you don't feel like you have the money and time now, just still get on your list and just be in your area, because you never know what small ways. I know for everything that you're doing, it takes a lot of big jobs, right? Like there are big things that you're doing, but also the small things are just as important, just as critical.
Those thank you cards mean a lot.
Yeah. We hear people say, well, I'll do this someday, or maybe this doesn't really appeal to me, but it could be any of us. When we look at these disaster areas, it could be our daughters, it could be, our sisters, our parents, it could be any of us in this need. These are not people that lived this way before the disaster. They don't choose to live this way. And so once somebody really understands that, I think their desire to help is even better and bigger, that we can make a difference. We can make a difference just here and there.
Throughout our entire interview, I've been thinking about that visual that you gave us of like 5 women pulling up, over 60 in a pickup truck. And I can't wait to come and spend time with you both.
Well, we have a great picture. One of our gals finished a flooring project last year. And after it was over, and it was a massive amount of a house that they did a flooring in. And afterwards, she jumped in the air, like, the expressive jump of just absolute joy. And I think all of us internally can still jump in the air like that in our minds. But she did it physically and expressed it. And it's just almost epitome to me of the joy we get. And I'll give you that photo. That's one of my faves.
Oh, I'd love to show that.
And looking at the pictures, I was looking at some again this morning. of the volunteers, how happy they are when they're standing together, having completed a project, and just the camaraderie. It's to me, it's I was never in the service, but to me, it's like being in the service, and that the bonds that you build with each other, and that's as important as anything on the job.
Watch One Girl Revolution's Emmy-nominated short documentary, The Girl Inside, on our YouTube channel or at onegirlrevolution.com. The Girl Inside features a poignant look at the stories of incarcerated women within Cook County Jail and a life-changing academic course taught by Dr. Laura Biaggi called Storytelling as a Healing Art. This short documentary reunites Dr. Biaggi with 5 of her former students for a special one-day course on the transformative power of our stories and our voices. And what is revealed is the girl inside. Watch the Emmy-nominated short documentary The Girl Inside today on YouTube or at onegirlrevolution.com.
Kate, I had intended to read you a couple of quotes.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
One of the people that we helped in Louisiana, this was his quote, and he's on an interview with a TV station, and he says it on air. He said, "Who are these women? Who are these women that didn't know me but came in for a week and gave me back a home I can live in?" And he was in tears on TV with this. Another one said last year in Kentucky, "Just when I thought no one else was coming to help, just when we had given up, here came this group of women who really know how to work, and they also listened as we talked about what happened." So we just have those compelling stories of people that propel us. They're fuel, really.
That's beautiful. And I can't wait to see where you go from here. And I know you've accomplished so much in a few short years and just continue to move forward. And I can't wait to continue to follow everything that you're doing. Like I said, I'll put your website and social media links in the show notes so people can follow the work that you're doing. I encourage everybody to follow, reach out to you, just to put your name on the list in case you guys need anything, in case you ladies need anything, wherever any of us live. But I always end this podcast on 2 questions. So I'd like to ask you each individually. And the first one is, you've told me all about your stories and your One Girl Revolutions. That's the reason why you're on this podcast. Everyone who's involved in Sister Corps is a One Girl Revolution in my mind. But who is a One Girl Revolution to you? Who's a woman or girl that inspires you? Sherry, I'll start with you.
I thought about that question for days, and it's so hard for me to narrow it down just to one person. I've been fortunate my whole life to be surrounded by powerful women, whether they be friends or acquaintances or work. I just can't narrow it down to one person. It's just women inspire me. Accomplished women inspire me. So I guess I have to leave it as a group. These volunteers that come out to these jobs, and they do what they do, and the age we are, I'm like, holy moly. As a group, the volunteers inspire me to keep it going.
I love it. Leeann, what about you?
Well, I like what Sherry said. I guess I go back to being raised. I'm raised on a farm and ranch, and my mother taught school. So during the day, for the first several years, my grandmother was my daycare, and she was a strong pioneer woman. She was born in 1870s, and homesteaded this place I live on now. And she was a neighborhood woman that delivered babies and prepared the dead for burial. She did everything. To me, she was everything I wanted to be. She could farm, she could can, she could sew, and she took care of everybody and made me a strong, independent woman. No, actually, my mother said I came out that way, but I was allowed to be by both my grandmother and my dad, too. But when I think back about my roots, they're that strong woman. Now, I'm not strong enough to very, very bad. But she was on call during the Spanish flu, which was very similar to what we all experienced in 2020. So I grew up with this belief that I could do anything, that a woman was not limited. And I believed. And so that would be my personal story. And then there've just been so many, as Sherry said, so many. We have women that go to our projects that have significant health issues, and you would never know it.
That's what I love so much about this podcast is like, it's not just about the one woman, right? It's not the one girl revolution. It's all of the other amazing women that came before us, but also the ones that are following in our footsteps or walking next to us, which I know you have so many of those with Sister Corps.
We didn't come on to talk about the two of us. It's really, when I contacted you, I just want you to know about all these other women that are behind. They're doing what we do. They're not behind us. They're out front doing it. I appreciate so much that you would even allow us to be part of this group of women that you have done podcasts on, because it's quite an amazing list of women.
Well, I'm honored to have you on the podcast, and I'm so blown away by the work that you're doing and all the Sister Corps community. I can't wait to continue to stay involved and figure out how One Girl Revolution can partner with you and support the work that you're doing. But I'm so glad that you reached out, and I'm so glad to get to spend this time with both of you. But before I let you go, I always end this podcast on one question. So I'd like to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
I've been reading this book called The War for Kindness, Building Empathy in a Fractured World. I don't know if you can see that or not, probably not. And I haven't got 40 pages into it, and every page is earmarked, underlined with things I thought were important. But here's the sentence that I thought was important to share. And it says, what matters is not where you begin, but where you can go. That's what I wanted to share.
So simple, but so powerful. Leeann, what about you?
Believe that you can, and don't let people tell you otherwise. And believe you can make a difference.
Well, you both are making a difference, and I'm so honored and excited to share your stories and the story of Sister Corps. And I hope that everyone who's listening gets involved in your work. And I can't wait to continue to follow everything that you're doing. But thank you so much, Leeann and Sherry, for being on the podcast. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do.
Thank you for having us, and keep up your good work.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number One Girl REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com.